ask a question. What do white people do wrong?
This is where it went off the rail. It's already 4 minutes in the interview, and Charlamagne wants to blame white people for everything.
Stop giving your money to woke corporations that hate you and your values. That's why I order all my man's shaving products from Jeremy Razors. Order your Precision 5 starter set today. This set comes with 4 razor blades, sharp as true, with tungsten handle and flip back trimmer. You're not in the market for razors? Jeremy Razors also has other facial products fit just for men. So you don't have to stock your bathroom with products that clean your body but stains your conscience. So shut up and shave. Go to jeremyrazors.com and use CBurns15 to save 15% off. That's jeremyrazors.com. Use my special code CBurns15 to save 15% off.
The Breakfast Club had Larry Elder in to speak since he's one of the candidates for president. And they had him on to speak, and he actually had to school them. They were totally unprepared for this interview, which they are all the time. I don't know why they feel as if since they have a big platform, they could interview people like Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott. I don't even know if Tim Scott been on there, but Angela Stanton was on there a few years ago. She toured through them. They were like totally unprepared, and they always are unprepared. Joe Biden was on the Breakfast Club, and he toured through them, always unprepared, and they lack the intelligence to ask intelligent questions or effective questions to get the audience to say, okay, I will vote for this person. I will not vote for this person. But they got their own agenda. Their own agenda is to spread hatred against white people. That's their agenda. They want to stand firm on this white supremacy talking point. And they did the same thing in this interview with Larry Elder. I'm warning you guys, you'll be triggered because the blatant ignorance permeating through the Breakfast Club is ridiculous. It is literally ridiculous. I tried to get through the Breakfast Club just through the interview, but I was getting too pissed off. So I tried to make talking points or where I want to start off at, but I was getting too pissed off to even go through the whole thing.
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You say MAGA?
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. When I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is a breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
Charlamagne, I'm surprised. You're saying if your statistics are right. You read Charlamagne, you're the numbers guy. So why are you trying to act like his statistics is wrong. It doesn't make any sense to me.
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlamagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia. A young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people?
It's 4 minutes and 34 seconds in the interview. And Charlamagne wants Larry Elder to explain to him what did white people do wrong. Does it matter, Charlamagne? Apparently they didn't do nothing wrong with you. Vivek Ramaswamy was there. Last time we talked about Charlamagne make about $3 million a year alone off the Breakfast Club. So apparently the white man's good to you. Apparently. You did something right.
I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No, there
systemic
used to
racism?
be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
But at the top of mind, I'll probably say maybe mass incarceration, maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's to break down the family.
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, you know. But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. And I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlamagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlamagne. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard.
Not only you discouraging black people from working hard, you discouraging black people to take accountability of their own actions. The white man didn't create an illegitimate baby. It took two people that was in the bedroom that created that baby. One was a woman and one was a man. The woman had a choice whether or not to be on birth control, and she could control access to her body. The man could control access to his body. And if he wanted to have sex with her, he could have put a condom on. That's called accountability. How is it that other race of people have accountability and we're the only ones that say, oh, we're not smart enough to have accountability, we can't control ourselves, we're just a bunch of animals? That's what the danger of this message Charlamagne is spreading. It's all one person's fault other than your own, and you can't control yourself because maybe you're not smart enough. You guys, let me know what you think. What type of message is he spreading to other black people? Black men is listening to this nonsense. And if you see this, the comments in this stream, everybody was like, Charlamagne, you got schooled. You wasn't prepared. He asked you name one systematic racism. And I do give him point, mass incarceration. But if you look at the statistics, okay, back in the 90s, yeah, mass incarceration, but Donald Trump reversed that bill that put black folks back, black drug dealers behind bars unfairly, right? Because Biden's crime bill. So he reversed that. So what's the problem with mass incarceration now? He already told us the statistics about the crime rate. We're only 13% of the population, but we committing more crime. Why is that? And you can't tell me black people inherently are bad people. That's a false narrative. It's a lack of having parents. And I always say, these fools can't read. Once you become more educated and read more, knowledge of self, you stop doing crazy stuff.
Okay, Mr. Elder, quick question. Let's just remove the word racism.
And here's this this fool. She thinks she gonna one up. Let's remove the word racism. They're so dead set on blaming white people for everything instead of taking ownership from yourself for yourself.
Since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole, let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the Black family, should certainly have some room for some improvement. Let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged Black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they Black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of Black people were Democrats, as the majority of Black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember
this is why I really got irritated with this interview. This lady, Teslin, she's trying to hone down the system is white. Okay. But if you're talking about elected officials, who elected those officials? And that's what Larry Elder is trying to explain to her. Okay, these people are not dictatorship. They got there somewhere. People elected them. And who elected them? Not only white folks elected them, but Black folks elected them. And this is what he's trying to explain to her. But she doesn't get it.
The main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or Black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or Black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the Black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right. And what I'm asking was, it white people, so I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system?
And she tried to be condescending, but your question is not a valid question. Your question is a stupid question, because everyone knows if you're an elected official, it doesn't matter if you're white or Black, somebody elected you in there.
Are Black people in charge of that system that helped break down the Black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or Black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct. Okay.
Most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people.
Not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who put them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or Black?
Who put them in charge?
Help.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is,
because she thinks she won open. You're so, this is so stupid. This is so ignorant. This is an ignorance. I just don't understand. She act like she was, oh, thank you. Okay, but who voted them in there? People voted Lyndon B. Johnson in there, chose to be on welfare. You didn't have to be on welfare. They didn't force people on welfare. You chose to be on welfare because you didn't want to deal with your man. When the welfare system came around, that's when the feminist movement was picking up steam, and Black women was listening to the white women talking about, oh, you don't need no man. You can come work over here, or you can collect a paycheck. The man trying to keep you down. You don't need no man over your household. And we end up worse off than the white woman. And we got Teslin Figaro just because she got a degree in something. I don't know what she got a degree in. I think she's a lawyer or something. And she's supposed to be a mediator. But what does she mediate besides a bunch of mess? She keep up a bunch of mess. You could tell. She keeps up a bunch of mess. And she's trying to debate someone with higher intelligence. And she can't do it.
Is that the reason he did it is because of racism? Then I disagree. He did it because of...
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question. Was he white or Black? Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you talked about the smash and grabs, right? And I find that interesting because when you see the mass shootings that happen, majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually, if you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, the percentage of mass shooters is under that. The percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. The percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that of mass shootings.
We talked about the smash and grabs, though. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about the mass shooters that are usually white males? One
more time, they are usually white males because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number of mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population. They underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong? I'm gonna keep asking you that because I want.
Well,
like,
it seems to me rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are, which I don't think is a particularly productive thing to do.
It's not productive. That's your problem. You either want to hand out or you want to blame other people for your problems. It's not productive. What the white man did is not productive. And did is past tense. You so worried about what happened in the past, you can't even keep your eyes on the road. How can you move forward? Because you're so busy worried about the past. It doesn't even make sense. You're on Charlamagne is a damn fool. And I don't understand who will ever listen to Charlamagne or get any type of political advice from Charlamagne. Because he sounds like a damn fool. How can you be so successful and you're worried about what happened to you 5 days ago? I would like to know how Charlamagne became so successful. It doesn't make any sense. If he's so worried about what the white man did wrong. No, what are you doing right in your life?
I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI says.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks lived below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
But they still were living below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Can I just address that? In 1940.
Teslin, that was a bad point. We know we lived below the poverty line back in the 40s. That we know that wasn't his point. He talking about we didn't have any money then, we stayed together. So why did we break up when we started getting money? Why can't we bring it together? Because it's not the poverty. That's his point, Teslin. Why can't you understand that? It's not the white man's fault that we got a bunch of illegitimate babies.